Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third webinar in our free 10-part educational series of the year, Bookkeeping Fundamentals and More for 2020 Vision. The presentation today is about BAS and Super and how this affects your business and financials and your reporting obligations. Couldn't be more appropriate, being that BAS is due on the 28th and it's the 23rd today. So over to you, Sarah. Let's get going.
Hi, Joe, and hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again. And I'd like to just introduce you to Joe. Joe McClure from JM Virtual Business Services. And Joe has been the constant in our last three webinars. And Joe, I just enjoy what you do, and thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you for having me. I'm loving this series. I'm learning so much. It's really good.
Thank you. And I look forward to as many questions as possible from the audience. Feel free to send us emails, ask questions, anything. We're here to help, and that's the idea.
Absolutely.
So
email address to send those questions to?
Yeah, it's contact@trinitybookkeeping.com.au. So that's or you can call on 0419 564 823, and we just go to our website and you'll notice that all the past three webinars are in the video gallery that's available as well. And so if you want to just re-listen to things or forward them on to friends who might need them, that's a good place to start at the website.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah, so BAS and Super, huh?
So exciting.
It is exciting. In fact, last year when we were planning this webinar, I was thinking, well, what kind of sequence would we go through and what are the topics that we should choose? And isn't this the right topic for this time? Not only
perfect.
Exactly. Not only is it topical because it's the end of the quarter, but it's more so topical because, here we are having to submit our BASs, and at a time when JobKeeper payments require you to have information. And so it's just been so topical. In fact, last month when we did the payroll and staffing webinar, that was when the first stage of the lockdown was announced. And we were talking about staffing and payroll. And yes, staffing and payroll is important now, but in March, it was even more important because that was when it was happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is happening right now. People are expecting to put in their BASs right now so that they can get the JobKeeper payments that they've been waiting for. It's only been legislated a short while ago, and the ATO has opened up their online platform to allow us to put in our applications for those payments. We've got a deadline till the end of March, 30th of March, in order to actually put in for the month of March the information. And so it's just go, go, go. How are you finding it, Joe?
Oh, look, it's just been manic. Just, making sure that all the information in our system is up to date. And just trying to keep up with the changes that are coming out daily. What's right one day is not necessarily right the next day. And that's really, really key. And it's so hard to keep on top of. However, we're getting off topic. We will discuss this more in detail a little bit later on. First, let's start with BAS. And what is BAS? Why is it important? And how does it relate to the JobKeeper payment we'll follow on with?
All right. So BAS, why do you as a small business owner need to lodge your BASs? Well, if you're registered for GST, it is the reporting mechanism by which you let the government know what is the net GST payable or receivable to you. So if you're registered for GST, you collect GST on services that you provide, and you pay GST on services that or products that you purchase. And what you have to do is net that off and let the government know what is the net amount, and you're either going to have to pay them or you will get a refund. GST applies to the real end user. So as businesses, it's a netting off. It's a zero-sum game at the end of the day because it's a give and a take and it nets off. But we have to report that to the government.
Yes, so essentially we're collecting the tax on behalf of the government and then reporting to them, telling them how much we've collected for them, and then they collect it off us basically.
Yep.
And what we've spent in GST is deducted from what we need to give them.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So so this is it's a reporting obligation for those who are registered for GST. So for those who are not registered for GST, then that they just like, for example, a sole trader or someone who's earning under $75,000 and has decided not to register for GST, then they would just report you know, at the end of the year when they did their financials. But a lot of us have registered for GST, and this is the way that we report. There's different periods that you can report. You can report on a monthly period, a quarterly, or an annual period. Now, regardless of how you've chosen to, if you do employ staff, you will need to report on income activity statement for, and it's monthly, that you would need to report on a monthly basis. And in the quarter, at the end of the quarter, when you're reporting your BAS, your income activity information is also put into your BAS. So it combines the two for the quarter. So
I was going to ask one question about BAS. So if I wasn't registered for BAS, but my business is growing, and I saw that, oh, you never know, I might reach that. Is it 75 or $80,000?
75,000.
Yeah, my business is growing and I'm not registered for BAS, and I think, oh, I might get to that point in maybe 6 months' time. Should I be registering in advance?
Yeah, you can. Registering is completely up to you, but it's mandatory to register after when you know for the year you go over 75. So let's say that you're coming close to the end of the year and you notice, hey, I'm going to hit that threshold before the end of the year, then register right away.
Is there any like, do we get fined or anything if we actually not realize it and we reach that point and we haven't registered for it?
Well, it's not seen very well by the ATO because they expect it, and it's the rules that over 75,000 you have to. I think if you go just a little bit above 75,000 and you say, hey, you know, I'll register now, they don't make such a
They
big
don't.
deal out of it. But then if you just go way above 75,000 and you're not registering, that's mandatory. It's an expectation.
Yeah. So it's really, so what you're saying is it's really important to know where you're actually at in your business. And that goes back to last month's webinar, or even the month before, actually. Back to cash flow, you really need to know your projections and where you're at and have that data in your
That's
system
right.
up
That's
to
right.
date, because there are penalties for not realizing that you're going to reach that threshold soon. So yeah, okay, I just wanted to clarify that. That was
Yeah.
just something that was in the back of my head. Somebody asked me a question about it the other day.
And another thing, just to add to that, Joe, let's say you
Mm,
are registered for GST and you think,
mhm,
well, I'm way below the threshold.
mm.
I've registered for GST, but do I need to pay the do I need to invoice with GST? Yes, you do.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely. Yeah.
if you say that you're registered for GST and you've got you register sorry, if you register for GST, then you have to include that in your price. And what
Yes.
does happen is that if you don't, I know cases where the ATO will actually take out the GST portion out of
Wow.
the gross that you report.
So you'll be
So
out of pocket.
you'll be out of pocket. So if you say you're going to register for GST and you apply for that, you have to go and follow through with that.
And you have to pay it.
You have to
Excellent.
pay it. You have to
Great.
pay
Good
it.
to know. So
Um,
that's BAS. Why we have BAS? We're tax collection agents for the government. You know,
yes. Yeah.
big brother, we're doing your work for you.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
why is it so crucial during this COVID-19 crisis? We've all heard that. That's been, done to death, I know, but, it is a serious time. Why is it really important to have your BAS done? How's
Well,
that going to help?
Well, it's all about reporting. It's all about letting the government know how much money you've been making and whether you've been working and collecting for services you've provided.
Yeah.
For example, if you're a company and you haven't been operating, well, you can't really apply for the JobKeeper.
No, well, that's true because
Yeah,
there's certain criteria which make you eligible.
that's right.
So I know you've been studying up on this and it changes every day. So
Yeah.
Sarah's just here is that she studied up last night on it. So as at today, it is
In,
correct. Might change tomorrow.
yeah, it might change tomorrow, but I just wanted to add a little thing. Um, when I was looking through the ATO website, there was a requirement that we had to have our tax returns filed by the 12th of March. And that
Yeah.
was a requirement for the last financial year that we should have had it filed by the 12th of March. So that's what everyone thought. Yada, yada, yada. So we just went around thinking that's what we needed. And then yesterday I was going through the website and lo and behold, they've taken it out. So I thought,
So
that's odd.
yeah.
Yeah, so I actually called the tax office and I wanted to clarify that fact because um, I was doubting myself. So
Mm,
when I called the tax office, the lady on the other end said, no, it's the 12th of March. You need to have submitted your tax returns by then. And I said,
mm,
well, it's not on the website. She goes, let me go and check. She didn't
mm.
know either. So she
Oh,
goes, oh, you're
wow.
right. You don't have to anymore. So,
That's fantastic because that would rule out so many people. Because, for example, I haven't, naughty, I know, I haven't actually processed my tax returns for last year. But
mhm,
now they've taken that as one of the eligibility criteria
criteria.
off the table.
Yep.
I might qualify. That's
That's
really good news.
Yeah,
Really
that's
good.
right.
Mm,
Especially for certain businesses who haven't submitted any, let's say, BASs or income
oh, yeah.
activity statements, and
Yeah.
it's just based on their tax return, right?
Mm,
Then they would have been excluded, but now they
mm,
are included. So,
that's
so let's go through. Before I step into that, let's talk about the BAS and your reporting. Remember we talked about reporting versus recording way back
yes.
in the first webinar about, yeah, well, if anyone wants to find out about reporting versus recording, just go take a look at the first webinar. But, so that's something to be mindful about. And
Mm,
it flows through to the JobKeeper because they're looking at cash basis.
yes.
So they want to
Again,
know how much cash you
webinar.
exactly. So, so let's look at the JobKeeper payments and let's look at eligibility criteria.
Okay.
So, what do you need to have to be able to apply? So, the eligibility criteria include that you need to have an ABN number,
Yeah.
and that the ABN, as part of the eligibility criteria, you also need to have made a supply of a service or a product after the 1st of July 2018.
Okay. Excellent.
And that's right. So you should have made provided a supplied a service, and that you have either lodged the BAS or
Mm,
lodged something so that the government is aware that you have been trading.
Okay.
So
Yep.
that
That makes
means
sense.
it's so anything. And so if you haven't, do it right away. Do it
Yes.
now.
Yeah. Not too late.
Not too late. Do it
Not yet.
now. Do it
Yes.
now. You know, okay.
Okay.
So you need to have other proof that basically you've been providing a service. All right.
Okay.
So that's
Yep.
number one. And number two, you need to have either yourself you need to be either self-employed through that business, or you need to have an employee, at least one employee. If you have a trust, you'd have beneficiaries. Only one person, one of the beneficiaries can get the payment though. Only one director within the trust can get
Okay.
that payment. Also, another thing to be aware of is that if you work for several different companies, you can
Mhm.
only apply from one employer. So,
Yes.
the JobKeeper payment is a payment per person
Mm-hmm.
employed in several different like entities. So it's
Okay.
for the person that, so you can't say, well, I work for this company, I work for that other company, I'll take some from here and take some from there. No,
Okay.
you can only do that with one. And another thing is that an employer needs to get a nomination form from each employee saying
Mm-hmm.
that they are applying for the
Mm-hmm.
job keeper through that particular employer.
And that's not to be lodged with the ATO, is it? That's something that the employer keeps on record for 7 years.
That's right. And just in case they come around and ask you, you want to have that information available.
Yeah.
And basically, the JobKeeper payment application it's a self-assessment. So
Okay.
you're coming forward and saying, I need this
Mm.
because I'm in dire straits at the moment. I've got an employee, or I'm working in the company myself, and my
Mm-hmm.
business has reduced in the amount of its turnover, and so I'm unable to um, achieve the goals or the revenue that I was in the past, and so it's a government assistance. So
Yes. So just one point there. So what was I going to say? So you have to prove that your business has reduced, but it
yes,
has to be reduced by at least 30%.
exactly. 30% if you're under $1 billion in turnover, in GST
Oh,
turnover. So I think that most of us fall under that category.
yeah.
But
I'd love not
yeah,
to.
our value is not based on just our turnover, okay?
So true.
Because we're more valuable than that. But this is
Yeah.
how they are, um, the ATO is valuing how much they're going to give us. So
Yeah.
if your business has done less than 30%, there has a decline of 30% or more,
Mm-hmm.
then you are eligible for this JobKeeper. And for a not-for-profit organization, it's 15%. Okay.
Okay, that's good to know. Excellent.
Yeah. So now that we've spoken about that, let's
Really.
look at the turnover and how you report the turnover and what is a real decline. What does decline actually mean? So what
Okay.
they do is you've got to look at your projection or your numbers for last, let's say month or quarter,
Yeah.
for the last financial year, and then compare it to this financial year.
Okay. So
So,
what if you are a growing business and your last year's turnover is naturally smaller than this year's turnover in the March period, but you expected it to be more because obviously you've grown your business, you've got more clients.
yeah, you're growing your business. You might have more clients. You might have opened up different service lines, for example. So you
Okay.
can't really. It's comparing apples with oranges, right? So you
Yeah.
can't really say, well, it was the same, and so of course it's less. So there's alternative tests for new business and growth, and basically what you can provide is a month-to-month P&L, like a trend. You can show
Okay.
trend analysis. So either you can show last quarter to this quarter,
Hmm.
or you can show what you're projecting, okay,
Okay.
for the
Yeah.
next couple of months. This is what you would have been going, like if you had gone the way you were going, this is how much you
Mm.
would have made.
Okay.
If it wasn't for for COVID, um,
Mm.
and that's why it's a self-reporting tool.
Yes.
And I would say that if it doesn't apply to you and your business is doing well, then don't apply for it.
No.
In fact, I was speaking to a couple of my clients, and I was very pleasantly surprised, when
Mm.
I called one of the ladies who have had for a little while now, and she said, "Look, I don't need to apply because my business hasn't been that affected." Yes, it has been affected. I know. Yes, it has been affected in that I can't see my clients uh, in
Face to
the
face.
office face to face,
Mm.
but I've been able to do Zoom. I've been able to do other meetings. I've been able to do those things, and I'm okay.
Mm.
So she adapted her situation, and she
Mm.
feels that she's all right. She doesn't need to apply, and she'll still do all right. Now, I think that's lovely. And
Oh, fantastic to hear that
yeah,
people are thriving in this environment. I
yeah.
mean, that's a win to be celebrated, right?
It is. It is
Mm.
because I think a lot of us look at, the doom and gloom, but there's so many options.
Yeah.
There's new directions you can take, different strategy that you can, put into place. And
Mm.
maybe you were thinking about going online and doing things online anyway. This has really
Yeah.
pushed it into the forefront right now, and we just have
Mm.
to go ahead you know,
And do it.
and do
Yeah,
it. And it's not as
absolutely.
bad as you would have expected in quite a number of cases.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic to hear that, there really are people and businesses out there that are doing well and doing okay. I love to
mm,
hear those stories because,
mm,
there's so much doom and gloom out there at the moment. It's it shatters me when I watch the news and you see how hard people are struggling and
yeah.
it's awful out there. But to see people thriving, I love that.
Yeah.
It balances it out a little bit.
It
Yeah.
does balance out. Like another good news story, because I like to have the good news and balance it out with the bad news. But another good news story, someone in the construction industry, for example, have come forward, and I
Mm.
was talking to them, and they said, "Look, we're doing fine. We're not going to apply for it."
Oh,
And
great.
that was another win. But on the flip side, I have hairdressers who are
Mm.
severely
Mm.
affected, and in which case desperately waiting for
Mm.
the ability to apply for the JobKeeper, and
Mm.
when to apply, and when am I going to get the money. And so
Mm.
that's the next point that I want to bring across, is that once you're successful, okay, and once you've made the application, what
Yeah.
happens then? What happens then? How much do you get? And what does the employer have to pay you?
And what are our obligations as employers? What do we actually need to do and what are the regulations around these payments? Yeah.
Right. So when the COVID crisis hit, you would have had a couple of choices. Either, you had to stand down your employees completely because there was nothing you could
Mm.
have done, that the business was, that was it for the business, or
Yeah.
you would have got asked for different measures, like how about we reduce your pay, or maybe you can take long service or annual leave, or maybe you negotiated some of those um, possibilities with your employees.
Mm.
Well, if
Mm.
that was the case, and you were expecting to either reduce, slow down, cut down, or put your employees on maybe leave without pay, any of
Mm.
those, then what this JobKeeper allowance allows you to do is say to them, "Hey, here's the money. until things get up to where they were. For 6 months at least, the government is giving us
So
these.
1 week of, or 1 month of showing that we are paying this, and the government will give us the subsidy for 6 months.
That's right. So it's a
Mhm.
subsidy. It's for 6 months, and
Mm,
what it is, um, the government expects us to make the payment first, and
yes.
they will reimburse it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for the period, if we're looking at March and
Yes.
you're applying for this reduction and this package now, then they
Mhm.
expect that by the end of March that you would have paid by the 30th of March the the
Okay.
2 fortnights payment.
Yes.
So $3,000. So what they're saying is 1,500 per fortnight per employee is what the government is willing to give as a reimbursement. So what does that exactly mean? 1,500 is what you're going to be making. So let's use a couple of scenarios. Let's
Okay.
say that you had an employee and you were paying them 1,500, the status,
Okay.
1,500 for the fortnight. Well, the
Yep.
government is going to give you the 1,500 to offset whatever you paid them
Okay. So now just one thing here. It means 1,500 before tax, but
before
not
tax.
including super.
Exactly.
You have to pay the super separately, and that's out of your business's pocket.
Yeah.
But it's the tax, the payroll tax,
Mhm.
and the wage.
Right. So we're talking about, so the payroll tax is a different issue, but this is
Oh,
the
okay.
PAYG. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. I get that confused sometimes. Sorry.
That's all right. So payroll tax is only above a couple of $100,000 of wages that you're paying, but that's okay. It's yes, I know. It's like MyGov and MyGov ID. They're both very similar, but they mean completely different things. As you reminded me this morning. I'm like,
Yes.
oh God.
Oh, all right. So let's get back to this example. So we've got an employee. They have they get paid $750 a week or $1,500 a fortnight, including their payroll tax. So that's not their take home, that's their gross.
Including
So,
PAYG.
yes, exactly. Including their PAYG, getting tongue tied. And so basically, whatever that money that you're paying your staff, the government are just going to give it back to you to subsidize them, to
That's
keep
right.
them employed.
Keep them
Fantastic.
employed.
So
That's great.
what happens when say I've got an employee and they're earning say um, instead of $750 a week, they're earning $500 a week.
All right, $500 a week, $1,000 a fortnight.
Mhm.
Well, the government is still going to give you 1,500 for that person,
Excellent. So I put
regardless.
$500 in my pocket.
Keep dreaming. That
No,
ain't happening.
it
No,
doesn't happen.
no.
But the winner here is the employee.
Exactly. It's a minimum wage just to help the employee, the the individual to make it through. So,
That's it. So they get paid the full $750 a week or $1,500 a fortnight, even
yes,
if they usually earn less.
exactly.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. It's a bonus. It's just an allowance and on top of what
Mhm.
they normally earn for 6 months.
For 6 months. Now, as an employer, there's a particular way that you need to report it, and
Okay.
a different way to record it on your system.
Yes.
So, what you would do is you have a choice. You have a choice to pay the super on the entire 1,500 if you so
Mm-hmm.
choose, or pay the super on the $1,000 as you
Mm-hmm.
normally would,
Yes.
and have the $500 a fortnight as an
Mm-hmm.
allowance. So when you're recording it, you'd be recording it as an allowance within your P&L. So when you get the money into your bank account, which is what you need to do, is put in your bank account details when you put in the nomination, the money will come in. It's seen as income, as a
Yeah.
subsidy. And when the expenses are paid out, it's wage expense or an allowance for,
Okay, now that makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah. So they don't get, it's a separate payment. It's an additional payment.
it's
I
an
like that.
additional
Mm.
allowance. So it nets out, the income comes in and then the expenses actually net out everything. But what it is, it's a timing issue. Remember we spoke about timing in cash
So
flow?
important.
Yes,
Yes.
so important. So what the government is saying is that we'll give you this money right on the 5th of May after you've applied on at this month. 30th of
Hmm.
May is the final day for
Right.
applying and paying your employees, but we'll pay you 5 days from now. So you actually out of pocket per employee that money.
Fine.
Yes. Um,
Okay. So what if you don't have that money there to pay them?
and this is
Are
what
there
Yeah, and this is what encountered with some of the employers and businesses who come to me is that we don't have the money to
options?
pay right now. We don't have that $3,000. We've had to
Sure.
stand down, not stand down, but we've had to ask our staff to go with leave without pay, or if we had casual staff, we had to say, sorry, we don't have any work. And
Mm,
now you're saying to us, well, we've got to make that payment and we don't have that money. So it is
mm,
certainly a dilemma.
mm,
It is, the government has been telling us that they have made all of these grant available grants that we can get that are available from um, let's say the banks, for example, that we can apply for a loan. Banks are saying yes, we're available, but as you know, Joe, it is kind of difficult. It's a
Well,
yeah.
the banks have got such a backlog of people. I mean, we were talking about it earlier that I applied for one of the top four banks. When my gym was closed, we applied for a loan to get us through. So we went online and we did the online thing, is what they told us to do. And that was like the
Mm,
beginning of April, maybe late March, and the automated response was, "We'll get back to you. We're experiencing high inquiries. We'll get back to you within 7 days." And I'm still waiting to hear.
mm,
But all is not lost. Some of those smaller banks
mm,
and the mortgage brokers,
mm.
they've got access to some of the smaller institutions that
That's right.
have the turnaround time and could potentially get your money quicker, or get some
Exactly.
money quicker. And the other thing that I thought of was, you can even apply for it on most of the banking apps, an overdraft. That would
Yeah.
help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. It would help. Remember the interest though on those overdrafts that I know it's only well, we're hoping it's only 5 days and you get the money in the bank, but we don't know for sure how many days you're going to be out of pocket. So
Mm,
this goes towards, how much buffer did you have
mm,
when you know
mm,
some businesses did have a little bit of a buffer that they can play with, but a lot of us are pretty, hand to mouth, you can say. And if that's
yeah,
the case, you will be affected in this
mm,
situation. But as you mentioned, Joe, I would say go to your local bank, go to the small banks where you get to meet a person. You don't get these automated reply saying, you're in the queue.
mm,
Talk to people about your situation, and you might find that the smaller banks like Bank of Queensland, and we
yeah,
have a Bank of Queensland manager who's within our business network, that
yeah,
I'm sure he would be happy to help out
mm,
if people were in that situation. It's just for a couple
absolutely.
of days, and in fact, he sent some documents through to me the other day on what are your eligibility criteria and things like that. Maybe I pop that onto our
That'd be
website.
great. Yeah, that's a good idea. That way everyone can read through the information that's being given out, and then you've got a contact then to give Bank of Queensland a call and to see how they can help.
Yeah.
But they definitely are turning. But when we spoke with him this morning, he was saying that that loans are being approved left, right, and centre, and they've got capacity to take on more. So
Mm-hmm.
if that's what you need to get through this time, then
Yeah.
absolutely
And
do what you have to do.
exactly, guys. And just what you might be out of pocket right now because it's a $3,000 per employee that you're paying out, but maybe your business is slowly moving along, and
Mm.
that money that you would have normally paid staff anyway, remember this is a subsidy, so you actually, if you are surviving and limping along, you might be making some money, you know, and
Yeah,
so you may not be that worse off a couple of months from now.
yes,
So that's something
yes,
to consider as well.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so that kind of covers reporting, doesn't it?
It does. It does now. Um, the other bit that I wanted to talk about is the compliance. I think we spoke about the compliance, but hey, what we didn't talk about is what sort of employees are able to get this JobKeeper payment. So
Okay, yeah.
not all employees. So if you were under 16 and you were stood down, you're not going to get it,
No,
unfortunately.
no.
Yeah,
That's,
which is
uh,
which is sad.
they probably wouldn't be, unless even tradies, they probably wouldn't be earning the 750 anyway. So
No,
for a 16-year-old or under,
makes
um,
sense.
they wouldn't be earning a minimum wage anyway. So that
Mm,
does make sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Is there
and
anyone else? People
then
on a visa, perhaps?
yeah, international students, unfortunately, they're the hardest
Mm,
hit. And I've seen a lot of talk about what can be done, but definitely, especially in the hospitality industry and so forth, and international students have been hit, and that is definitely an issue. But we are blessed to live in a country where we are being supported because not every place is offering what we are getting.
no,
So
we're
we live in a
very
blessed land, you know?
mm,
Um,
absolutely.
so that covers the job. Sorry, go on.
I was going to ask, is there any other, so under 16s and international students or people on those kind of visas aren't?
Um, if you are from New Zealand and if you have
That's
the
a good
visa, you
question.
do get it. You do get it because
Hmm.
we have an agreement with New Zealand.
Oh,
So,
that's really good because I know
yeah,
that, you know, being from New Zealand, we treat you like you're our brother or sister,
yeah,
but so many things aren't available to them, even though they don't have to have visas and stuff like other countries do for working. So that's great. I'm really glad that we've got that and we can help them because they're Australians too.
yeah, exactly. So there's a couple of other eligibility criteria, but that was the main ones that stood out, Joe. Um, so I would say
Excellent.
that's that. And the last bit that I wanted to just quickly wrap up on is
Mhm.
about superannuation. Last month we spoke about the super, and we
Yeah.
spoke about the amnesty that we have for super, and that became law in beginning of March. And what is this amnesty? We've explained it in detail last month, but
Mm,
basically, if in the past any of your businesses have not reported or paid super, so
mm,
if you had workers that you just somehow maybe forgot to, or you had a different reporting system and you didn't capture that, but now you need to pay them, go ahead and
have enough
self-report.
money to at the time,
Sorry?
like, or you didn't have enough money to at the time. You might not have put that money away, put it
Yeah,
aside.
yeah, but at
So
least report
normally,
on it.
oh, that's right. At least you've reported on it. but normally you would get fined for that, wouldn't you? For
Yeah.
not reporting and not paying.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what you're doing now is that this amnesty allows you to say, hey, I'm a guilty party,
Mm,
and not get fined.
that's
And not get
fantastic.
fined. But remember,
You have to do it.
yeah, it's fantastic because normally you do get fined, really hefty
Mm,
penalties, and obviously, this is part of the wage for the employee.
yes.
So, and that's
It's
why if you look,
really important.
yeah, it's important. And the JobKeeper payment, doesn't mean that you don't pay the super. You still pay the super,
Correct.
and the amnesty then allows you to say, hey, we are liable to these employees, and we will be making the payment or have some payment arrangements in place or start paying it off. Now, it's also self-reporting. I think
Mhm.
you see a theme, it's about coming forward and saying, hey, I owe this. But
Yes.
remember, Big Brother can come round and check up and do an audit. And if they do find that you haven't raised your hand and admitted to doing the wrong thing, they could fine you, and they will fine if you've been given a chance and you still don't go ahead
Yeah.
that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they'll make an example of you as well, because they're encouraging people to do the right thing, so they need to discourage somehow, and they'll make an example. So don't risk it. It's if you haven't been able to pay your super, or you're a bit late with your super, make sure you report on it and pay it as soon as you can. I think that's the message, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the message.
Excellent. Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we covered BAS, why it's important, and why it's especially important at the moment with the COVID-19 JobKeeper payment, because
Mm-hmm.
you need your BASs in, you need your tax returns in if you don't have your BASs in. Um, we covered eligibility, the reporting requirements for the JobKeeper payment, and the compliance, and superannuation. That in a
Yes.
nutshell is, oh, losing my voice. That in a nutshell is everything we really wanted to speak about today, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And Joe, next month, so the
Mm,
third Thursday of the third
okay.
week,
Yep.
Thursday on the third week of next month, we will
Mm,
be having our next webinar. So this month we had 5 weeks, and so it was on the
mm,
fourth week, but it is on the fourth week rather. But
yep.
next month we'll be doing that on the third week, and we will be talking about budget, and we'll be
Mm.
talking about looking forward in the year ahead, and
Again,
just
that's so pertinent to what will be happening in a month's time. Everyone
yeah,
will be looking to see, how do we plan for the
yeah,
year ahead?
yeah.
What we'll know so much more by then. We may even have some of the restrictions lifted, and more people starting to operate their businesses again. So it's a perfect time to be looking at the budget and your forecasting for the year ahead. And yeah, I just, this COVID-19, it's not necessarily a bad thing. There are so many brilliant opportunities out there.
Mm-hmm,
It's a great
mm.
opportunity to get your reporting up to date, your CRMs up to date. Start thinking about your budgets and your planning for the year ahead. It's a great time.
That's right. And also planning, like you said, Joe, and CRMs, doing your social media. And Joe, you look after social media as well, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We look after we've got a few clients that we look after their social media accounts with, and yeah, we're just banging them out at the moment, and getting lots of likes. Everyone's on social media at the moment, and
Mm.
it's really good to see some really positive posts out there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and while we're sitting at home and we can't go outside, and we can't shop outside, we're looking online to see what's going around us, and how other businesses are doing. And social media is it, being online, our websites, all of that. So there's plenty of planning to do. There's plenty of opportunities to
Yeah.
take this opportunity. You could say this,
Yeah.
yeah, this
Take our
situation.
businesses forward. So yes,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to learning all about budgeting and planning and why it's really important to do it. And yeah, it couldn't be a better time, I don't think.
So what I plan on doing is looking at how to do a budget and giving templates on how to do that budget. So
Fantastic.
yeah, looking forward
Excellent.
to it.
I am too. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. That was lovely.
No worries. We should
And
say thank you everyone for coming.
thank you, everyone. It's not just Joe, it's thank you, everyone. And listen, guys, if you have any questions, let us know. I think the one thing that I missed out on was that BAS agents are able to help out with the applications. You can do the applications yourself online. So you need to go to your MyGov ID and put in the applications for the JobKeeper payment. And either you can do it, your BAS agent, or your tax agent are able to help you out with that. And so good luck, all the best, and see you in a month.
See you in a month, everyone. Thanks,
See you, bye.
Sarah. It was fantastic.
Thank you.